Welcome to Google Sheets, Functions and Formulas. This is a video in the lecture series for Health 518. What's covered in this video? Well, we're going to look at the basics in Google Sheets of how to work with operators, references, functions, and formulas. We're going to take you through kind of what you do in your cells and how you use things like the plus and minus signs, how to construct a formula from scratch using your cells and using kind of constructing those arithmetic operators and reference cells to add things together and calculate things. And then we're going to actually calculate descriptive statistics. Now, this is a companion video to the What is Descriptive Statistics video that I encourage you to watch in advance of this video. You can actually watch that one first or second, but I do think it's easier to follow if you watch that one first. So let's get started. So when we work with Google Sheets to do calculations, there are a couple of basic things you should know. So first of all, we need to understand some terminology. First, we are going to have to work with some operators. Some you know, like the standard arithmetic operators like are adding and subtracting, multiplying, dividing, and so on. But we also can use things like comparison operators. So there are a couple different things you can use, like comparison, so like less than, or greater than, etc., equal or equal or lesser, things like that. So there are some comparison operators that you can use. And there are cheat sheets that are available online that you can use to find out what these are if you need them. You can also use concatenation. So when you use something called a function, and again, a function is an operation that a spreadsheet can use, can apply to your data set to do automatic calculations. You can use concatenation to identify ranges. So for example, if I have, I'm just going to put some numbers here in a range here. If I want to, for example, put these together and add them together, and this is, I'm using the function sum, which just adds things together. I can then concatenate these by left-clicking and holding this down, releasing, and then you'll see that I have concatenated by using a colon. And then I close that out, and that calculates a sum. So I've just showed you how to use the sum function. That's a formula that you can apply to calculate the sum. We're going to do that in class as well. Okay. So you can use concatenation. It's usually automated. Google Sheets does not really leave a lot for you to figure out on your own. It does prompt you, which is great. Another thing you should know is references. There are a couple different references. The two that are the most important are relative and absolute references. So I want to give you a couple of examples. So I have a couple data here. So if you look at these two pieces of data, I have two different 13s here. One is just a plain old 13, and you'll note up here that it says C7. Okay, great. And my second C13 is in cell C18, C8, but I want to change that and just call it Karen. Great. If I press enter, this is now Karen. So for example, if I want to calculate this cell here, 29, so I'm going to select the reference 29. So this is a relative reference here. And I'm going to use multiply, which is just the asterisk symbol. And I'm just going to type the word Karen. And you can see it turns purple. It's going to reference that 13, and you can see it's now purple in the screen. So if I press enter, it's going to return 377, and if I highlight the cell, you're going to see the formula maintain. So that's the way you can kind of create shortcuts here. Another thing you can do is to create an absolute. So if I look here again, I've got a plain old 13 in my D7 cell. But if I look at D8, you'll notice that I have some different stuff going on up here. I have two $signs, a $sign before the column marker and a $sign before the row marker. And what that does is stop the row and column number from changing when it is copied. This is really useful when you copy something and you're doing something systematic and you don't want that to change from wherever you put it in your spreadsheet. We'll get to this when we work on some more complicated formulas. Again, I mentioned some functions. I demonstrated the sum function a few minutes ago, that example up here, and sum is an example of a function. You can find all the functions up here. If you click Insert and you go down to Function, you'll see that there is a wealth of functions that you have access to. The most common are shortcutted up here: sum, average, count, max, and min. But you can find all of them under the All tab, but you can use any of these. And for our purposes, the statistical tab might actually be where we use a lot of different things, and you're going to become familiar with some of the things that are listed here. It looks really overwhelming, and it is, but we'll go through some of this during this course. Okay, so that's where you find all of the different functions. There are hundreds of them. Explore a little bit, but I want to talk about formulas, and this is where we put all things together. And formulas are when you use data in different cells plus functions and you put them together to make meaning. So oftentimes in our work in health promotion, we have to calculate a lot of different things. So you might have to calculate body mass index or maximum heart rate. In my example below, I want to calculate the monthly expense of smoking, and this might be relevant to an investigation I might be doing about the expense and burden of smoking on students on a college campus. I have some data I pulled here. For example, the number of cigarettes smoked here, and this is per month. This number of cigarettes in a pack is usually about 20 in a pack, and the price per pack in Massachusetts or any other state, you could put in a number here. I just put $7 because the average nationally is around $6.95 right now. And so I'm going to use a formula here to calculate this. So based on this data, I'm going to use this formula I found online and calculate it. So I'm going to put an equal sign. Oops, sorry, that was not what I meant to do. Shows you a mistake. I'm just going to X out of that. Sorry about there. And you just press Control-Z to restore things that you've screwed up. Good to show that. I'm going to highlight my cell where I want my calculation to go, press equals. And here I'm just going to follow the formula and put my two signs here. Sometimes I just start with what I want to do. So I highlight the cell here, M, divided by C, which is this number of cigarettes. Great. And I'm going to multiply by 30. I'm just going to leave it there for right now, so that right now that's a portion of what I need to do. If I want to go up here to the formula bar just to complete my process, I go back and edit this at any time. So you can do it in the cell where I was working, or I can do it up here. And sometimes that helps make things a little bit more clear. And now I'm going to finish my calculation. So the monthly expense for this data for smoking is $147. And so this is a formula I've created, and if I had a lot of different data here, for example, per state, I could use this and calculate it by state, and maybe I would have a really nice graphic showing all the different states and showing differences across states. So that's a little bit about formulas. So let's get into calculations. And so in the descriptive statistics lecture video, you learned a lot about the different types of descriptive statistics you can calculate. And Google Sheets makes that really easy for you to do. So for descriptive statistics, we can use our functions to return frequencies, central tendency measures, as well as dispersion / deviation statistics. And so we're going to start with frequency. So I have a little bit of data here that show some no-shows, counts by week for a particular clinic out of the total number of people who were scheduled. One of the things I really like about Google Sheets as well as Excel is that there is a function called count that allows it just literally will count the number of values within a data set. It's really just very, very helpful. So as opposed to summing the numbers, so if I put these two numbers together and I wanted to calculate the sum here, like I just did in the example in the basics sheet, I can go ahead and do that. But if I want to count things, if I really want to count stuff here, and look at the relative frequency, I can go ahead and do that. And so I'm not going to do the, I'm just going to show you a couple different things. So this is the count. If I want to see the total number of values here, I can easily see how many there are visually, but if there's a giant data set, this would be a real problem. So I can just use the count function here, and this is looking at the absolute frequency here. This is the absolute frequency that's in this data set, and I'm using the left clicking and then holding that, and I'm just going to close this out. Now there's 7 values here. I highlight this, you can see that this has been, again, concatenated here, and that's just the number of numeric values within this data set here. Okay, so that's the, I'm going to change this to absolute frequency, okay, for this entire data set. Great. All right. Now, if I want to, again, go back to the relative frequency, which is the percent, this is the percent. And again, I'm just going to change it so you can see that. I want to look at the no-show rate by week here. So if I want to do that, I'm just going to press equals, and I want to use the data I have. So I'm going to select a reference here. This is a relative reference divided by the number of people who were scheduled to be vaccinated, and I'm going to click enter. Now I could just use multiply by 100, but I'm going to use formatting here and go up here to my formatting bar and format as a percent. I can go over and just change the number of decimals to 1. All right, now here's a handy trick. If I want to now calculate this for all these other rows, I highlight the cell and you see this little clicky thing here. I can hover over it where I get the plus sign, and I can now drop and drag by holding the left click button. And now I've got percents for the percent no-show rate by week. If I want to do a cumulative frequency here, I can make a formula that does that. So cumulative frequency just means that the cumulative percentage. Now, it doesn't really make sense for the data we have here, but if I wanted to look at the cumulative frequency by week, for week 1, it's just the same frequency, but for week 2, it's the week 1 and 2 added. And I can just say week 1 plus week 2, cool. And I can keep doing that individually. So again, you have to have a good sense of operators and formulas. There's more than one way to do stuff. And again, I have some crosstabs here that I want to show you. You can calculate these with a lot more sophisticated data, but a lot of times a good way to organize data is by crosstabulation in spreadsheets, and sometimes show the relationship between groups by organizing it by group status, in this case, vaccine status by education level. And so I don't have that data here to show you, but one thing you can do here is to organize it so that it's really easy to look at. And again, if you want to move it around, I can also put this up here. I can move this to a new spreadsheet if I want to, which I'm not going to do now. But again, crosstabs are a really great way to organize data. So that's frequencies. If we move to central tendencies, there are 3 different central tendency statistics: mean, median, and mode. And there are a couple functions that you should know. So for this example, we're going to look at mean. The function's name is average, which is exactly what a mean is. And so for this data set, I'm just going to type in average. Now, it even prompts me to put that in. So I could just literally click on this or press tab, and it would do the mean for this data set. If I click on this or I click up here, it will highlight the data series for me. But you can go ahead and type that in. So that is my mean. If I want to look at the median of this data set, I can do the same thing by using the median function. And again, here it's going to prompt me. If I want to accept this, I can just press tab, which I did. And the same thing for mode. Mode's a little bit tricky here because I have a little bit of variation I want to share with you. So I'm going to be looking at this data set here, drinks consumed per week, because mode is about looking at the most common value in a data set. Here it's a bit weird. I've got two different sex assigned at birth categories. So here I want to look at mode. And again, it's not going to suggest anything because it's not next to the data set I want to look at. And it doesn't look at qualitative categorical data the same way. So I'm just going to manually put it in. So the most frequently appearing data value, which I can visually see, is 2. Fine. All right, so if I want to look at it for males, there are a couple different ways you can do that. One, I can sort my data and just look at that data that way. Or I can physically go here and just type in all the male values. And it will tell me, I don't like that. And I wanted to show you this because one of the things when you work in Google Sheets is that you have to work with what it likes you to do. Now, I'm showing you what an error message looks like because it just doesn't like how this is set up. You have to kind of always have them in the same order, okay? So what I'm going to do here is take this and I'm going to filter it. Excuse me. Filter. Oops, sorry. Control Z. I'm going to highlight the whole thing. I'm going to filter, and I'm going to filter for just males. Okay. And here I'm just going to go back and change my data set and hope it's happier. It is happier. It still says 2 is the set, which is again not exactly true because there's no real mode here, so it's just defaulting. So here again, you want to have a little bit different data set. I'm going to go back here, sort by female. And I just want to see what it does. I'm going to play around with this a little bit. And it should be 2. 2. Good. All right. So when there's only one, there's no mode, but it just defaults to the lowest value, which is really, really annoying. So again, it's better to have one clean data set and not to select individual values. Let's move now to descriptive statistics that are about dispersion or variation or deviation. Those are all interchangeable words. To calculate range, we want to use the functions of max and min because what we're looking for is the highest value and the lowest value in your entire data set. So we can calculate a range. So here we want to find the highest value by using the max function. And in this set, we're going to go and highlight that set. Close our brackets. We're going to use the min function, and we're going to highlight the set and close. And now we're going to subtract by selecting our relative reference, using the minus operator and clicking here for the lowest value, and that gives us our range of 166. That is our range. To calculate the standard deviation, you could actually make a formula if you wanted to, or you can just use the function which returns the standard deviation. And so here what we're going to do, we have two different data sets. Okay, so for the first one, I'm just going to click here and put in my function. It pops up, and now it's going to suggest to me the range. So I'm going to click Tab. And I'm actually going to do the next one too because I want to show you something. So when I do here, it's not sure what I'm doing, so I'm just going to click here. And here you can visually see two very different data sets, and this shows you this data has a little bit less variation. The data are a little bit closer in values. There's a little bit more spread across. So it's not a lot of variance. You can see a lot of variation or deviation here. So this number 1.05 is much lower, and you would expect that because you can visually see it. But here, where you just have 5s and 1s, there's no middle ground, really. You would expect that variation to be much wider, and so the standard deviation reflects that. And then finally, we're going to scroll right here and look at variance. Now, variance is just squaring the standard deviation. And I'm just going to do one example here, and it's to use the var function. Here you just type var, and we'll tell you what that prompt is. Great. I'm just going to take this example and close brackets, and that will give me the variance. It just squares this. One thing you cannot do is to actually square a calculated standard deviation. So for example, if I calculated standard deviation here, standard deviation of this, great. You can't do this, which is to take the square of the standard deviation, which makes a lot of sense. It says you cannot do that because it wants to calculate based on the assumptions of the original data. So just be aware that's something that you cannot do. So that is the end of this video. I hope you found it helpful.